When programming in C++, it is important to understand what an iteration statement is and how to use them. In this presentation, I will discuss three types of iteration statements and how they work. First, let's define what an iteration statement is. An iteration statement is a loop that runs based on a set condition. The three types of iteration statements I will explain are while loops, do-while loops, and for loops. The first iteration statement I'd like to talk about is the while loop. The while loop is the simplest iteration statement. This diagram shows how a while loop works. When the loop starts, the condition is checked. If the condition is true, the code inside of the loop is run. Otherwise, the program jumps to the first line of code after the loop. Once the code inside the while loop is run, the condition is checked again. If true, the code runs again. Otherwise, the program jumps to that first line after the loop. Let's look at an example of a while loop. In this function, the user enters a minimum and a maximum number. Then a while loop is used to print every number between the minimum and maximum. Here is the output from that function. When the loop starts, the program checks to see if the variable print is less than or equal to max. If true, the program prints print and increments that variable by 1. This repeats until print is greater than the maximum value, at which point the program skips the loop. The next iteration statement is the do-while loop. The do-while loop functions almost identically to the while loop. The only difference is that the code is run first, then the condition is checked. This is really handy if you need your code to run at least once before checking the condition. Let's look at an example of a do-while loop. In this function, a user is prompted to enter a word. If the word has an even number of letters, the word is an even word. If it has an odd number of letters, the word is odd. If the user types bazinga, the loop ends. As you can see, the loop is run each time a word is entered until the word bazinga is used, at which point the program leaves the loop. The final iteration statement is the for loop, and it is the most complex. A for loop consists of three parts: the pre-loop initialization, the conditional statement, and the post-loop housekeeping. Let's look at this diagram for how a for loop works. At the beginning, you have the pre-loop initialization. In this stage, you can declare a variable and set it to some value. Next, the program checks the conditional statement, just like in a while or do-while loop. If the statement is true, the code inside the loop is run. After the code is finished, the program goes through the post-loop housekeeping, which is often incrementing or decrementing a variable. Then the condition is checked again, and this continues until the condition is no longer true. Let's look at a common application of for loops, filling and printing arrays. In this function, an array with 10 elements is declared. To fill the array, we can use a for loop. After the array is filled, a second for loop is used to print the elements at each index in the array. This slide shows the output from printing the array. If you look at the diagram, you can see that in the pre-loop initialization, int j is declared and set to 0. Then the condition of j is less than 10 is checked. Since j is less than 10, we print out element j in the array. Then we increment j by 1 and repeat the loop until j is no longer less than 10. Thank you for listening to this presentation on iteration statements for C++ beginners. If you would like more information about using iteration statements, you can visit geeksforgeeks.org or tutorialspoint.com.